bookish friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Kathleen and here we talk about all things bookish. Today I want to talk about the 16 books that I acquired in April, so let's jump into it. First up, I want to talk about my book subscriptions as I joined Book of the Month Club. I think it was last month. It was back in March, I think, that I joined Book of the Month Club, and this past month I decided to join Aardvark Book Club. So for Book of the Month, I decided to choose 6 Days in Bombay by Alka Joshi. And I don't know, between the gorgeous cover, the way that the beautiful greens, and the compelling premise, I just had to add it to my collection. The premise goes, when renowned painter Mira Novak arrives at Wadia Hospital in Bombay after a miscarriage, she's expected to make a quick recovery, and her nurse Sona is excited to learn more about the vivacious artist who shares her half-Indian identity. Sona, yearning for a larger life, finds herself carried away by Mira's stories of her travels and exploits and is shocked by accounts of the many lovers the painter has left scattered throughout Europe. When Mira dies quite suddenly and mysteriously, Sona falls under suspicion and her quiet life is upended. The key to proving Sona's innocence may lie in a cryptic note and 4 paintings Mira left in her care, sending the young woman on a mission to visit the painter's former friends and lovers across a tumultuous Europe teetering toward war. On the precipice of discovering her own identity, Sona learns that the painter's charming facade hid a far more complicated, troubled soul. So, I don't know, there's something about that sounds very interesting, very compelling, very intriguing, and I cannot wait to dive into it. Next up we have Junie by Erin Crosby Eckstein. I saw one of my favorite bookstagrammers talking about this book and explaining how this was such an impactful story for them, and I just knew that I had to get it in my hands. The synopsis says, 16 years old and enslaved since she was born, Junie has spent her life on Bellarine Plantation in Alabama, cooking and cleaning alongside her family and tending to the white master's daughter Violet. Her daydreams are filled with poetry and faraway worlds, while she spends her nights secretly roaming through the forest, consumed with grief over the sudden death of her older sister Minnie. When wealthy guests arrive from New Orleans, hinting at marriage for Violet and upending Junie's life, Junie commits a desperate act, one that rouses Minnie's spirit from the grave, tethered to this world unless Junie can free her. She enlists the aid of Caleb, the ghost coachman, and their friendship soon becomes something more. Yet as long-held truths begin to crumble, she realizes that Bellarine is harboring dark and horrifying secrets that can no longer be ignored. With time ticking down, Junie begins to push against the harsh current that has controlled her entire life as she grapples with an increasingly unfamiliar world in which she has little agency. She is forced to ask herself, when we choose love and liberation, what must we leave behind? It sounds like this is going to be a compelling piece of historical fiction, and I am excited to dive into this sometime soon. Lastly, I decided to get Disillusioned by Nicholas Binge, which this was through Aardvark Book Club when I signed up and I got my first box from them. And this is something that is very interesting, kind of the premise regarding like memories and the possibility of memories being stolen. The synopsis says, Maggie Webb has lived the last decade caring for her elderly husband Stanley as memory loss gradually erases all the beautiful moments they create together. It's the loneliness she's ever felt in her life, until a mysterious stranger named Howson appears at her door, revealing a shocking truth. Stanley isn't losing his memories. Someone is actively removing them to keep a long-buried secret from coming to light. If Maggie does what she's told, she can reverse the degeneration, she can get her husband back. Led by Hassan and his technological marvels, Maggie inserts herself into her husband's mind, probing the depths of his memories in an effort to save him. The farther back she goes, the more she discovers about the man she thought she knew. As Maggie witnesses the erasure of memories before her eyes, she wonders if everything and everyone she sees can be trusted. If Maggie can't find out what Stanley hid all those years ago and what Hassan is after, she risks for more than her husband's life. The very course of human history hangs in the balance. This sounds fascinating, and I think this cover is gorgeous as well. Next up, we have the books that I purchased while I attended the San Antonio Book Festival in early April. I got to participate and see some very interesting author chats, where it was one with May Cobb and Ashley Winstead, as well as one with Layla Leilani discussing her book, The Dream Hotel, and finally rounding it all up by going to Stephen Graham Jones' talk as he talks about his new release, The Buffalo Hunter Hunter. And the two books that I managed to get my hands on and purchase while at the festival was, of course, The Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. This is going to be my first book by this author, as I'm trying to explore and dip my toe into the horror genre a little bit more, and I couldn't be more excited because he seemed very fascinating and very interesting in this discussion. He had a lot of cool things, interesting things to say, so I'm anticipating that the commentary in this book is going to be perfection. So the synopsis states, this chilling historical novel is set in the nascent days of the state of Montana, following a Blackfeet Indian named Goodstab as he haunts the fields of the Blackfeet Nation looking for justice. It begins when a diary written in 1912 by a Lutheran pastor is discovered within a wall in 2012. What is unveiled is a slow massacre, a nearly forgotten chain of events that goes back to 217 Blackfeet dead in the snow, told in the transcribed interviews with Goodstab, who shares the narrative of his peculiar and unnaturally long life over a series of confessional visits. This is an American Indian revenge story, captured in the vivid voices of the time by one of the new masters of literary horror, Stephen Graham Jones. This sounds like it's going to be a fabulous time, and I hope to be diving into this fairly soon. Lastly, I picked up The Dream Hotel by Layla Leilani, and I'm so glad that I did because this was such an amazing read and such an amazing experience digging into this book. And as I dive more into the speculative fiction genre, I'm just falling more and more in love with it. And this book to me was just the epitome of greatness. So in this book, we are basically following Sarah Hussein as she is traveling back home from London and going through LAX, looking to reconnect with her husband and her twins. And she is basically kind of triggered with the Risk Assessment Association, where they say that her risk score is elevated and she has the potential risk of causing harm to her husband. So they take her to a detention center where they are going to hold her for 21 days. And once her risk score is de-elevated, it comes down, she'll be able to be released and reunited with her family. But as she is finding, navigating this retention center is rife with confusion as the rules kind of change and they're super ambiguous, and she's never knowing what she is or isn't supposed to do or what's right or what's wrong. And this is leading her to get into trouble where they're writing her up and they are extending her stay in this retention center. And this is leading her to struggle with these feelings of hopelessness and wondering if she's ever going to be reunited with her family. And when I tell you that this is such a fascinating read, a fascinating, compelling story, it really is good, and I'm so happy to have this in my collection. Next, I had a delightful shopping spree at Half Price Books, as I am really honing in on buying books secondhand to save my coins and to extend my book budget a little bit further. So here we go. First up, we have The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. I'm interested in reading this and learning more about this book, as I do tend to like Leigh Bardugo's writing style and the way that she tells stories. So I'm quite interested in seeing what this is all about. So the synopsis is, in a shabby house in the new capital of Madrid, a lowly scullion hides a gift for little miracles. But when her employer discovers Luisa Cotado's secret talent, she demands Luisa uses her illusions to win over the royal court. Determined to forge a better life for herself, Luisa plunges into a world of power-hungry nobility, desperate kings, holy men, and hucksters, where the lines between magic, science, and fraud blur. With the pyres of the Inquisition burning, she must use every bit of her wit and will to win fame and hide the truth of her ancestry, even if that means enlisting the help of the notorious Gillian Santanjal, whose own secrets could doom them both. This sounds like a very interesting, compelling book by her. I cannot wait to see what she does with this story. Next, we have Hooked by Emily McIntyre. I recently read Hexed by Emily McIntyre, and I just loved that book. And I am excited to dive back into the Never After series and read the first book and see what this is all about. The synopsis says, James has always had one agenda: destroy his enemy, Peter Michaels. When Peter's 20-year-old daughter, Wendy, shows up in James's bar, he sees his way in, seduce the girl, and use her for his revenge. It's the perfect plan until things in James's organization begins to crumble. Suddenly, he has to find the traitor in his midst, and his plan for revenge gets murkier as James starts to see Wendy as more than just a pawn in his game. Wendy has been cloistered away most of her life by her cold, wealthy father, but a spontaneous night out with friends turns into an intense and addictive love affair with the dark and brooding James. As much as she knows James is dangerous, Wendy can't seem to shake her desire for him. But as their relationship grows more heated and she learns more about the world he moves in, she finds herself unsure if she's falling for the man known as James or the monster known as Hook. This sounds like it's gonna be a good time. If Hex is any indication of her storytelling ability and the way that she just weaved this perfect dark romance, I'm sure that I'm gonna have a fabulous time with. Next, I was inspired to purchase these two authors from Half Price Books because I remembered attending their talks at the San Antonio Book Festival, and I found them to be so compelling and so interesting. And the first book is by May Cobb, and it's The Hunting Wives. I just found her to be so entertaining, and I wanted to see more and learn more about her books and really dive into her worlds and explore her work, as I just thought she was fascinating. So the synopsis for this is, Sophie O'Neill left behind an envy-inspiring career and the stressful competitive life of big city Chicago to settle down with her husband and young son in a small Texas town. It seems like the perfect life with a beautiful home and an idyllic rural community. But Sophie soon realizes that life is now too quiet and she's feeling bored and restless. Then she meets Margot Banks, an alluring socialite who is part of an elite clique secretly known as the Hunting Wives. Sophie is completely drawn to Margot and swept into her mysterious world of late-night target practice and dangerous partying. As Sophie's curiosity gives way to a full-blown obsession, she slips further away from the safety of her family and deeper into the nest of vipers. When the body of a teenage girl is discovered in the woods where the Hunting Wives meet, Sophie finds herself in the middle of a murder investigation and her life spirals out of control. This sounds fascinating. Lastly, the author that I also saw at the San Antonio Book Festival that I thought was fascinating was Ashley Winstead. While I did read In My Dreams I'll Hold a Knife by her, and I had a decent time with that, I still want to explore more of her works and to really give her a shot to see if she's just an author that can be one of my auto-buy favorite authors. So I decided to purchase Midnight is the Darkest Hour. So the synopsis says, in her small hometown, librarian Ruth Cornier has always felt like an outsider, even as her beloved father rains fire and brimstone warnings from the pulpit at Holy Fire Baptist. Unfortunately for Ruth, the only things the townspeople fear more than God and the devil are the myths that haunt the area. Like the story of the Low Man, a vampiric figure set to steal into sinners' bedroom and kill them on moonless nights. When a skull is found deep in the swamp next to mysterious carved symbols, Bottom Springs is thrown into an uproar, and Ruth realizes only she and Everett, an old friend with a dark past, have the power to comb the town's secret underbelly in search of the true evil. So this sounds like it's going to be dark, mysterious. We're gonna be diving into possibly like some kind of religious trauma. It sounds like it's gonna be quite an interesting read. Next up, I had fun purchasing some secondhand books again using Pango Books. I usually get my secondhand books from Pango Books when it's like a specific book or a specific edition that I'm looking for. So I had fun exploring their app and purchasing books from there. So I got the 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I read a novel love story by her and I loved her storytelling. I loved the romance and the little bit of elements of magical realism. And I've seen so many people talk about how much they adored and loved this book. So I'm excited to give this a try. The synopsis says, sometimes the worst day of your life happens and you have to figure out how to live after it. For Clementine West, that means burying her head in her work as a book publicist, being practical and forgetting the silly things her beloved aunt Analea taught her, like living wide and chasing the moon. Clementine would rather stay grounded and keep her heart safe. For the last 6 months, she's done just that. But when she moves into her late aunt's apartment and finds a strange man standing in the kitchen, a man with kind eyes, a southern drawl, and a taste for lemon pies, her well-laid plans begin to fall apart. because he's the type of man who, before it all, she would have fallen head over heels for, and she still might, except he exists in the past, 7 years in the past to be exact, and she quite literally lives 7 years in his future. Her aunt always said the apartment was a pinch in time, a place where moments blended like watercolors. She also said that love is never a matter of time, but a matter of timing. And Clementine fears she may be 7 years too late. This sounds quite interesting, and I'm looking forward to reading it. Next, we have In Any Lifetime by Mark Guggenheim. This is a book that I read maybe a year ago as I was just first starting getting back into reading. I read this book and I wanted to add it to my collection as I read it, I guess as an ebook at the time. I fell in love with it, this story, and I had to add it to my collection and own it so that I could read it and enjoy it again. So in this story, we are following Dr. Jonas Cullen, who is just a remarkable physicist, but this untimely accident takes his wife's life way too early, and it kind of sends him into a tailspin, and he spends most of his time trying to figure out a way where he can basically travel between alternate universes so he can find the universe and the reality where she actually lives and exists so that he can be reunited with her. But of course, this plan has a lot of different things that are moving in it that go awry and that kind of cause trouble for him, and it's just a fascinating read, seeing this man do all that he can to be reunited with his one true love. I loved it. Next up, we have another book that I read about a year ago, and that is Bring Me Back by Kristen Granada. I loved this book so very much. This is basically following Phoenix as she is just stepping out of a mental health facility and is trying to work to get her life back together and put everything together amidst kind of like this family kind of drama and not being as close to her family and the loss of her father. And she's trying to navigate this new world and continue her healing journey. And that's when she meets James Russo and his family that live next door, and this sparks an intense romance, and they both have to navigate and work through some of their emotional walls and boundaries so that they can build a lasting and true authentic relationship with one another. And I love this story. The mental health rep in it was, I thought, excellent and so well done, and I'm so glad that I own this. Lastly, we have the books that I purchased to celebrate Independent Bookstore Day. I had to participate in that, of course, and I got 4 books total, and let's dive into it. So first, I decided to purchase my first 2 books from Nowhere Bookstore in San Antonio. I love that bookstore so much. It's just, the vibes are immaculate, and it's such a beautiful, cool, groovy place to just be in. I love it. I decided to get S.A. Cosby, All the Sinners Bleed, because I have not read S.A. Cosby as of yet, and I am dying to crack into his work. The synopsis says, Titus Crown is the first black sheriff in quiet Sharon County, Virginia, a beautiful place with a harrowing past. After years of working as an FBI agent, Titus knows that his hometown might seem like a land of moonshine and honeysuckle, but secrets fester under the surface. A year after Titus's election, his investigation into a shooting unearths terrible crimes and a serial killer who has been hiding in plain sight, given cover by the town's occasional devotion to the wrong side of history. Sharon is Titus's home and his heart, but where faith and violence meet, there will be a reckoning. This sounds like this is going to be dark, that it's going to be intense, and it's going to be super, super good. The second book that I got from Nowhere Bookstore is Binti, which is a complete trilogy by Nnedi Okorafor. I recently finished and read Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor, and I loved that book. I fell in love with the book. I loved her writing style. I loved her ability to tell such a complex and just immersive story, and I'm excited to explore more of her work. And I thought, what better way to dive into this world than to read this series, because I've heard so many good things about this. So the synopsis states, in her Hugo and Nebula winning a novella, Nnedi Okorafor introduced us to Binti, a young Himba girl with the chance of a lifetime to attend the prestigious UMSA University. Despite her family's concerns, Binti's talent for mathematics and her aptitude with astrolabes Astrolabus, I might have pronounced that wrong, make her a prime candidate to undertake for this interstellar journey. But everything changes when the jellyfish-like Medusae attack Binti's spaceship, leaving her the only survivor. Now, Binti must fend for herself alone on a ship full of the beings who murdered her crew, with 5 days until she reaches her destination. There is more to the history of the Medusae and their war with the Kush than first meets the eye. If Binti is to survive this voyage and save the inhabitants of the unsuspecting planet that houses Umza Uni, it will take all of her knowledge and talents to broker the peace. But even if Binti achieves this remarkable feat, it's not the end of her story. For this lone Himba woman, now bonded with a Medusa and forever changed by this bond, still must find a way to survive and thrive at Umza University amidst swirling interspecies biases, and eventually she must return home to test the strength of the fragile peace she worked so hard to win. This sounds so good, and I'm so excited to dive more into her work and to read this. This sounds like it's going to be an excellent time. And I'm also excited because I'm trying to read more sci-fi and just get back into the sci-fi genre, and I think this is going to be perfect. Next, I got 2 books from bookshop.org to support the Twig bookstore, because on that Saturday I wasn't able to make it to the Twig bookstore because of parking, and I decided I'll just purchase 2 books online from bookshop.org and make sure that my proceeds go to support that bookstore, and that is what I did. So I decided to get Caste: The Origins of Our Discontents by Isabel Wilkerson. This is on my 25 for 2025 as one of the books that I just must read this year, and I'm so excited to dive into this. The synopsis states, the Pulitzer Prize winning author of The Warmth of Other Suns gives a masterful portrait of an unseen phenomenon as she explores how America throughout its history has been shaped by a hidden caste system, a rigid hierarchy of human rankings. Immersive, deeply researched, and beautifully written, Caste inspires us to transcend artificial and destructive divisions toward hope in our common humanity. This sounds right up my alley. I love social science, sociology, psychology. These things fascinate me, understanding what makes people tick, what makes like communities and society and kind of social structures tick. It's just fascinating. I cannot wait to read this. And lastly, I got book 3 in the Deathless series, The Eternal Ones by Namina Forna. I'm planning on reading the Merciless Ones this coming month, and I just went ahead and decided to go ahead and get the 3rd book so that it would be ready so that I can finish and wrap up this series. I'm not going to read the synopsis for this because it's a continuation of the series and will contain spoilers, and it would also spoil me as I haven't even read the 2nd book yet. But the gist of this series is basically we're following Decca, who is a 16-year-old girl, and she is feeling anxiety over the upcoming blood ceremony, where they will basically determine by her blood if it is red or if it is gold, whether she is pure and impure, with red being pure and gold being impure. As it so happens, there are events that transpire that lead to the discovery of Decca being deemed to be impure and excommunicated from her village, and she is going to have to go under the death mandate where they unalive her. And before that happens, a mysterious woman shows up and gives her the opportunity of a lifetime and basically says, you can either continue going through this and struggling with the death mandate, or you can travel with me to the capital city where you can be trained to be an elite warrior and join the Emperor's army of Alaki, what they are called, and we're going to be going out and basically eradicating and getting rid of the death shrieks, which have been a nuisance and a problem for their area. So she decides with no other options that would be the best bet for her, and she proceeds to travel with her to the capital city to train to become an Alaki. But it is throughout this process that she begins to learn more about her history, more about her power, more about who she is, and this will change the course of history for all time. I enjoyed the 1st book, cannot wait to get into the 2nd book, and cannot wait to just finish this series, period, point blank. So those are all the books that I purchased in April. It was a good month to acquire some really good new books and also some treasured, already previously read books that I am just so happy to have in my collection. So let me know in the comments below, are any of these books that you've read, books that you want to read, books that you already have in your collection? Let me know, and make sure that you like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!